our elections, to reduce the prison population, and a lot more. But I know that my time is up. I'll stop here now. If anybody has a quick question or two, I'd love to try to answer it.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. So if anybody has a question for the Assembly Member, please use the raise hand function or post in the chat. The raise hand function, if you're on a computer, should be down at the bottom of the screen under reactions. We have time for a couple questions. Okay, I see we have someone raising their hand. It is Diana. Okay, I recognize Diana.
Hi, hey, Assembly Member. I was hearing today that there's a bill to change the petition signature requirement for the city races this coming year. Can you comment on that or explain it?
Sure. Great question, Diana. We were discussing that bill earlier this morning. There will be a vote on that bill in the Election Law Committee tomorrow morning. And it would reduce the requirement for City Council from 900 signatures, which is currently the state law, even though the city law changed that, to 250 signatures. And it would start the petitioning process 1 week later than is currently designated for it to start. So I believe it would start the first week of March. I forget if it would be the 2nd or the 3rd of March. And the requirement would be 250 signatures. I don't have all of the requirements in front of me, but I believe it would reduce the mayoral requirement to 2,500 signatures, down from 7,500. And I forget what the requirement would be for borough president and for municipal court judge, but we could get you those details. But it's in the bill that I think you've probably read, Diana.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. Lisa Hickey has a question. Lisa, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. I wondered if 107 ever did anything with the result of its dyslexia testing.
It's a phenomenal question. And Lisa, we can follow up offline. But in a short answer, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because of course, COVID, the test, what Lisa is referring to, I had spent the better part of 2 years trying to convince the Department of Education to do a screening program, a pilot program for dyslexia. And we had it at 2 schools, at PS 107 and PS 130. And right in the middle of that pilot program to screen first and second graders for dyslexia, COVID hit and school shut down. I do believe, if memory serves me correctly, that all of the screeners were administered and they had the results, and they were preparing to kind of just review that and then announce what those results were. And that's kind of where where COVID hit and kind of put everything on pause.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. So we do have a lot of other things to get through on the agenda, and I know you have another engagement to get to, but I'm going to see if I can ask the last 2 questions as a quick combo. Jan Castro asks, why isn't the governor on the same page as Chuck Schumer? And Lori Davidson asks, is there any relief money for undocumented New Yorkers, so unjust that these New Yorkers are left out? So maybe you could say just a couple words about those 2 questions.
So I'm not sure what you mean by on the same page with Chuck Schumer. I think Majority Leader Schumer is doing a phenomenal job. And I really, really do believe that he and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi are going to get the state and our local governments real aid and real relief. And I'm very excited about that. And that is a unbelievably tall order for Washington, D.C., and it's unbelievably necessary. If I had to pick somebody to be a champion for New York and to trust in politics, and it were between Chuck Schumer and Andrew Cuomo, I'd pick Chuck every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So if somehow the governor and the Senate Majority Leader are on the same page, I hope the governor gets on the same page as Majority Leader Schumer. As for undocumented workers who've been left out, I know one, some of the federal stimulus money that is being proposed, I think would go to them if it is passed. Two, there are bills inside the state of New York, one by my colleague Carmen De La Rosa, that would try to right this wrong, because it is terrible that folks who pay into unemployment insurance, pay taxes, pay into all these services that we benefit from, have been completely left out in the cold, and the only relief that they've received is through charity, and that's terrible, and we need to fix that wrong.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. And we have a quick question from Amanda Ritchie. Does the AVR bill being voted on during tomorrow's Elections Committee meeting deviate in any way from the AVR bill that passed the Senate?
I don't believe so, but Amanda, we can talk offline if there's something specific. But I don't think so.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Assembly Member, and thank you for your support of this committee. We really appreciate it, and we are going to continue on with our meeting now.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Night.
So I think I heard Francis chime in a moment ago about quorum, but we are going to recognize Francis right now to let us know if we have met quorum so we can call the meeting to order.
Sure. So right now we have a vote total of 112, including proxies. So I believe that is quorum because we need 80, correct?
We need 88, so we have made quorum.
Yep.
So-
I have a few names here that I can't account for. I'll just drop the handles in the public chat. If this is you, please message me your full name so I can count you. Thank you.
Thanks. So if you're one of those people in the chat, so for Chaos, I think we know who that is because we only have one member with that first name. But for the others, please confirm what you're registered, just let Francis know what name you're registered to vote under so he can make sure you're checked off on the attendance for this meeting so your votes are properly counted. Thank you very much, Francis. So we may call this meeting to order, and we are going to take our first vote and our first vote is whether to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which took place in January 2020. And those are available. We emailed those to you earlier, but I can put the link in the chat if anyone wishes to review those.
The link is also in the vote. When you go to the ballot, you can click on it from there.
Good point. That's how you should do it. So if anyone wants to check those minutes, you can go to your ballot and take a look at them right now. But I think that before we take the vote, we should just check if anyone has any objection to proceeding with the vote on approving the minutes. If so, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, hearing no objections, we can proceed with the vote. So please go to the Election Buddy link if you haven't already and enter in your 4-digit
Tony?
code.
There's someone who put a question in the chat of how to access the ballot. Maybe they came in late. You want to give
Okay,
those instructions
yes.
again?
Thank you, Gina. Yes, I see Joanne is asking how she can see the ballot. So you should have gotten an email right about 7:30 that has a link to go to the Election Buddy software, and that email also contains a 4-digit code. So you just click that link in your email, and it'll take you right to the Election Buddy site, and then you click on Vote 1, type in your 4-digit code, and you'll see where to vote. And if you're still having trouble, you can always send a message to Courtney, and she can try to work with you on that. I'll put Courtney's number in the chat again. Oh, Courtney just put her number in the chat, so you can text her if you're still having problems, Joanne. Okay, while we're voting, I wanted to jump ahead and take care of one other item because later on we're going to discuss committee work, but the chair of our Transportation Safety Committee, Debbie Herdan, is here now, but she has another commitment very soon that she has to get to. So I just wanted to recognize Debbie right now to speak a little bit about the work she's done in the Transportation Safety Committee and what she has planned for the coming year. So Debbie, if you're there.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks very much for letting me speak early, Tony. So because of COVID, we I think we had 2 meetings online. And I don't believe we met in person. So we didn't have, we really didn't get to explore our role so much and set a real agenda in 2020. So that would be our agenda for this year, would to be our role, exploring our role as the agents of street safety in our district and how to connect that to the larger county committee group. And also to continue to support safer, more livable streets in the neighborhood. One example is to follow up and get a status on the Fort Hamilton Parkway redesign that's planned for cyclists and for the general intersection improvements for everyone. That was supposed to be ongoing, but I haven't seen any work on it recently. Another idea was to support the open streets in the district as an ongoing project for one that's already open or trying to establish another open street and support it. The other activities that we can support as a group or as individuals is going to the precinct, the police precinct monthly community meetings, and remind them that we're concerned about traffic safety and street safety. So a few of us recently attended the 66th precinct community online meeting. So that was one example of that. Another idea is to possibly partner with another organization like TA Brooklyn if they got momentum on something big like the Coney Island Avenue redesign. So those were my topics of discussion with the group, and also to encourage anyone who's interested in joining our group to join the group.
Thanks so much, Debbie. I think that's really important work that you're doing. And I just posted a link in the chat box to a form where you can sign up if you'd like to check out the Transportation Safety Committee, or if you just want to ask some questions about it, you can follow that link and sign up, and Debbie will follow up with you. And hopefully there'll be a meeting, within the next few weeks where you can learn more and start to plan next steps. Does anyone have any questions right now about this committee for Debbie? If so, you can post in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. So thanks again, Debbie, for joining us. I know you have a busy night, and I look forward to working with you on the Transportation Safety Committee.
Thanks a lot.
So, and Diana is letting me know that some folks are still working on the voting. So I'm going to recognize Diana for a second, just so she can go over the voting procedures one more time.
So if anyone is having any trouble, if anyone's having any trouble finding the email, it's going to be from electionbuddy.com. It'll be called 44th ADC. And the subject heading is Vote Now, 44th ADC, Approved Minutes of Previous Meeting. That in there, there's a link to access all of the votes for this meeting. Go to this link. You'll be able to vote on the first vote. And then when you're done voting, just keep that page open. When we open the next vote, it will show up there, but it's not going to be there yet because we don't have a next vote yet. So please, everyone, go ahead and vote. I'm seeing we have 74 ballots submitted out of the 112 of you so far. So we're coming along pretty well.
Thanks very much, Diana. Also, one reminder, because I just did this myself, once you select your vote, yes or no, you say, hit the button to confirm, and then there's another button you have to hit to submit the ballot. So there's one more step after you say, confirm your vote, then you have to submit the ballot. So make sure you're clicking that orange button twice. So we're going to give folks just another minute or two to vote. And while folks are voting, I'll just talk a little bit more, since we already heard from one of our committee chairs. I'll just talk a little bit about the role of committees, because we're going to be discussing all the committees later in this meeting. But you might be wondering why, if this is the Assembly District Committee and we're members of County Committee, why do we need more committees? Because committees on top of committees. But I think there is a good reason for it. And as you can tell tonight, putting together even one of these ADC meetings is a big endeavor. We have 263 members in the district, and coordinating everybody's schedules and finding a venue that can fit everybody, or in this case, doing it electronically with electronic voting, is a major undertaking. So we've only been able to do that. We're hoping to do that twice a year. But if you only meet twice a year, there's not a whole lot you can accomplish. So what we're hoping is that everybody will sign up for a committee in an area that they're particularly interested in working on, and they can pursue that work on a monthly basis, or meeting every other month. Really, we'll let them organize the way they want to organize, and then they can provide actions that the whole ADC can take. For example, the voter turnout and outreach committee could propose a voter registration drive and then invite all the ADC members to participate in it. That would just be one example. Does anybody have any questions about the committee process, since we're talking about that now, while we're letting people vote? And I see people in the chat. Yes, I agree with you, Courtney. Putting together one of these electronic meetings is it's a lot. And I really appreciate Diana and Courtney and Francis for, the many hours they've spent, in meetings and with the software, playing with this. And I'm hoping we're going to have things go a little more smoothly than they did at those county committee meetings in December. So Diana, how are we looking on the vote?
Um, 80 people have voted, and it's a pretty one-sided outcome, but it seems like, oh, now, yeah, okay, so 80 people have voted, casting 96 votes.
Yes. Don't tell us the outcome until we
I'm not
close
going
it.
to tell you the outcome, but it looks like there may be one or two more technical difficulties, and so I want to figure this out because it may affect other elections. So
Great.
I just want to keep this open a little bit longer.
No problem. No problem. Well, one thing we could do, I just wanted to check if, let's see. Yes, our district leaders are here, and I'd love to give them an opportunity just to bring greetings. We won't go into a Q&A right now. We'd like to do the Q&A later, but if they have a moment. So we could start with District Leader Lori Citron-Nipel, if she has a moment, just to say a few words.
Sure. I'd like to thank everybody that works on this and thank everybody for attending. It seems my last count, we had 88 people in attendance, which is quite impressive. We just came off an incredible victory, and I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief. Our local operations for early voting was extremely difficult to put together, but I must say it ran very smoothly. We got excellent feedback, and we really had no problems in the 44th, but it took a hell of a lot of time, effort, and energy. As you know, citywide voting is coming up. It's going to be ranked choice, and from my understanding, the petitions that will be required will be cut by 70%, as Assemblyman Carroll said they're going to vote on that tomorrow. So in light of the pandemic. I certainly hope so, because it's a strain as it is in a winter cycle, and it's going to be even more of a strain under these circumstances. So that, and county is sponsoring a debate on January 31st, moderated by Errol Lewis. It will have the controllers debate between 6 and 7, the borough president between 7 and 8, and the mayor between 8 and 9. So it may be a good opportunity to hear all the candidates at once. Other than that, I just want to thank everybody for working hard on this. I know you put a lot of time and effort into this. We had a lot of obvious problems on the county level, and I'm glad this is running a lot more smoothly, and I hope we can extend that further.
Thanks so much, Lori. And now I'd love to hear from District Leader Doug Schneider, just for a couple moments, if Doug has time to speak right now.
Of course. Thank you, Tony. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Like Lori said, it's an amazing turnout. Really excited about this. I don't know if it's just me, but Tony, listening to you is like listening to like NPR on a Sunday. You would just like have the voice of for hosting one of these things. So thank you for that. I'm not going to repeat too much of what Lori just said. I will say that there are a lot of elected officials who, or candidates, excuse me, that are withdrawing from the forum, the mayoral forum and the candidate forum, because of inaction on the racist things that were said by one of our colleagues, District Leader Lori Maslow. In fact, it was just reported while we were in this meeting that Andrew Yang has just said that he's pulling out of the forum, and so that's something to keep his eye on, to keep our eyes on. In case anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, there were some tweets that were discovered by Lori Maslow that were really, I mean, they were awful. Some of them were targeting Asian Americans. Some of them were targeting Palestinian Americans and Palestinians in general, and they were just absolutely atrocious. And so a number of us district leaders called on her to resign and called on the party to comment on it. And really, the response has been completely unacceptable. Stephanie Latour just said, Carlos Menchaca pulled out, is also not going, is boycotting. And yeah, I was about to say Diane Morales is as well. And I think there'll be more, there'll be more as well. And other than that, the other news is that we're waiting for the results, a decision in the latest lawsuit over the county committee meeting debacle. And hopefully we'll get a good result on that. And everybody, I'll put my my email in the chat as always. People can always reach out to me about any issue, and I'll try to help. So thank you guys, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Tony. Thank you to Diana and Courtney, who have done an amazing job, and everybody else who put this together.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks to Francis as well. Our
and Francis as well. Thank you,
Secretary.
Thank you.
Yes, but
thanks
very
much.
Sorry,
Doug. Paco, didn't mean to leave you out.
Yeah, Doug, what the hell? It's gravy, don't worry.
So I just wanted to remind everybody, we are just wrapping up the vote to approve the minutes of our last meeting. So if anybody is still having issues with the voting, I guess you could raise your hand now or post in the chat, and I think then we're going to close the vote so we can move on. I don't think this vote is going to be controversial, is my sense. Okay, I'm not hearing any issues, so I think we can close the vote. And Diana, when you're ready, you can report the results of our voting. And if anyone's still having problems, we'll continue to troubleshoot that as we go into the next vote. So we'll hopefully get those sorted out before we take our next ballot. So While Diana is getting ready to report those results, I think we can move on to the next portion of the agenda. And she can, jump in anytime. So the next portion of the agenda is going to be the what I think is the most significant thing that we are doing tonight, which is voting whether to adopt a rules proposal. Now, you all should have received this proposal in the mail, and it was also linked in the agenda to the meeting. But in just a moment, we're going to have James Billsborough speak a little bit about these rules proposals, and then we can answer any questions that you might have about them, and we can discuss them before we vote whether or not we want to adopt these rules. So, Diana, should we go on with James, or did you want to jump in and report the vote now?
I'm going to give this one more minute.
Okay, that's fine. So we're going to give Diana a little more time. And right now I'm going to recognize James Billsborough, the chair of our Rules Committee, who's been working hard on these rules proposals, and he's going to give us a summary of them. So you can go ahead, James.
Thanks, Tony. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is James Billsborough, and as Tony said, I'm the chair of the Rules Committee. We're going to discuss some of the proposed rules here in a moment, but I thought it would be helpful first to provide a bit of background before we discuss the proposed rules. The Kings County Democratic County Committee has a set of rules that govern county committees and also govern each ADC, including ours. However, the county committee rules allow each ADC to establish rules for its own conduct and activities. So in other words, the county committee's rules allow each ADC to develop its own rules. The only caveat is that the ADC's proposed rules are subject to the rules of the county committee. So after the first organizing of this ADC last year, we formed a rules committee. Our committees met a number of times and discussed proposed rules that reflect the way we believe county committee members from this district want to organize our assembly district and its meetings. And I'll just say membership on the committee is open. So if you're interested, you can feel free to write to Tony or write to me, and we'll get you involved. So you should all have received a set of the proposed rules that we've come up with. I think you were sent the proposed rules by mail, and Tony also sent out a link. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to review those proposed rules. Generally speaking, the proposals relate to the way we hope to run ADC meetings, to provide notice of those meetings and what we're going to discuss at the meetings, to establish committees of the ADC, both standing committees and new committees, and how to spend the ADC's money when and if we do raise money. So just to summarize, I'm not going to go through the proposed rules in detail. I think we can discuss those that folks want to discuss, but in general, our proposed rules would limit members to holding up to 4 proxies, and would impose a quorum requirement of 25% present in person or by proxy. Though both of those are changes from the county committee rules. Our proposed rules would require notice of a meeting to be sent 30 days prior to the meeting, and that notice must set forth a protocol for agenda items to be included for consideration at each meeting. And that way everyone will be informed about important items that we're going to talk about so they can attend. In addition, our proposed rules establish certain standing committees, which are based on the committees that have already been established since the initial meeting of the ADC. And it also provides a protocol for members to create new committees and for those committees to be recognized. So at this time, I move that the ADC adopt the proposed rules for the 44th ADC. And we'll open the floor to discussion.
Thanks very much, James. So if anyone has a question, I'm trying to screen share the rules, but Francis has already put them a link in the chat. So it may be easier if you want to look at them on your computer, or if you also probably have the piece of paper from your notice. If anyone has any questions about any of these proposals or other concerns or comments, please raise your hand. And I see that District Leader Lori Citron-Nipel has raised her hand. So Lori, go ahead.
Okay, the only thing I'd like to bring up, which I discussed with you, Tony, was I felt that nominations should be open till the day of the meeting. If anybody wanted to nominate anybody from the floor, I feel that's a much more progressive stance, and we allow people who may decide they want to get a little more involved or decide they want to run spontaneously, so that we would allow them. But you can tell them your reasoning, and I believe that we expect that from county, and I think that it would be a good thing to allow here.
Thanks, Lori. So I will let James respond to that, but just so everybody is clear what we're talking about, this is in number 5 under notice of meeting. We're specifying that the notice shall be sent if these rules are adopted. Everyone will get a notice 30 days before the meeting, and then 10 days before the meeting. Anyone who wants to run for an elected position, either an officer of the ADC or a committee chair, must notify the ADC officers. And then 5 days before the meeting, the ADC officers will publish the full agenda so that people know who's running for which position. So James, did you want to speak to what the Rules Committee's thinking is in making that proposal?
Sure. I think our thinking was that we wanted to give everyone notice of all the important items that would be considered, including the nominations for elections at each meeting, so that folks can make an informed decision about whether to attend in person, whether to give someone their proxy. And so we thought it was important to provide full transparency. And we thought by doing so, by requiring folks to declare 10 days in advance, it wasn't an onerous burden on anyone.
Thanks, James. So I see that Kim Bernie Brook has her hand up. Kim, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the quorum requirements. I'm looking at the math, and I'm not sure how 25% supersedes the requirement of 1/3 of the members from the KCDCC rules.
So maybe I may be confused about the meaning of supersedes, and James may be able to explain this better than me. But how I interpreted that was that the KCDCC rules specify that the ADC may change their quorum requirements. So that bracket there was to indicate that this is overriding the KCDCC rule, which specifies 1/3.
I
But
see.
maybe
So we're
supersede isn't the
requiring.
best.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So there's a legal term. I'm sure the lawyers on the on the call would be able to figure that out. But so we're saying then that we require a lower percentage of for representation of the AD 44 than what is required by the county rules for ADCs.
Right. James, did you want to speak about why the committee is proposing this?
Well, we thought that 25% we wanted to ensure that we would have enough members participating in each meeting. And we thought 25% was enough to make sure that there was a sufficient number of members present, but it wouldn't be too onerous to have a quorum so that the ADC could actually conduct business. So that was our thinking.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think that the important consideration there is that with the quorum requirement of 4, that with the proxy limit of 4, sorry, mixing up the numbers. With the proxy requirement of 4, it will be much more challenging to achieve a quorum of 33% because no one can show up with 19 proxies or 20 proxies or 30 proxies. We're hoping more people will attend in person, but it would involve setting the quorum lower. Now, Mark has a question, but before we get to it, I wanted to recognize Diana because I believe she has the results of our first vote. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Diana share her screen.
Yeah, you gotta let me share my screen. So I have just closed the vote. 81 ballots were submitted, and you will see the results there. It was a pretty good consensus that we should adopt the minutes. And in case you want to see 100% in pie chart form, there it is.
Thank you very much.
And I'm about to paste the full vote by vote results of how everyone voted, and we will make that available in a Google Sheets, and I'll put the link for that in the chat in just a minute.
Thanks, Diana. So I'm now going to recognize Mark Jaffe.
Hey there. Just wondering if you could explain number 9. Why is the ADC holding its organizational meeting contingent on the county committee not holding its meeting, and what just can you explain that point a little bit more, and what the ADC would do meeting in place of the county committee meeting?
James, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Although you may be able to fill in some helpful details there, Tony. But so this year, I think this is a rule that would sort of respond to what happened this year, in part when the county committee did not, or initially said it would not hold a meeting, and so we are. Under the county committee's rules, the ADC is supposed to hold its organizing meeting within 30 days of when county committee holds its meeting. But if we had another situation like this year where the county committee was stating that it wasn't going to hold a meeting, that would leave us in limbo, and we wouldn't be capable of holding our organizing meeting. So this rule is intended to address a situation where the county committee doesn't announce it when it's going to have a meeting, or opts not to have a meeting, in which case, instead of holding our meeting within 30 days, we can hold a meeting at our discretion so we can get organized and get going for the new term.
Thanks,
Thank you.
James. Yeah, I think that particular provision would have been relevant this year because we were just from when I was speaking with the other ADC officers about when we should meet, it was nerve-wracking because we're required to meet within 30 days of the county committee organizing meeting, and we could not figure out if the county organizing meeting was even happening. And the story kept changing, and it was litigated, and it makes it very hard to plan when you're working under those considerations. So hopefully in the future, we'd be able to just proceed. And if county committee wasn't happening, we would keep doing what we're doing here in the 44th. So I believe we had a question in the chat. Let me get the chat window open. Sharon Harkey, do you want to unmute yourself, or or I can just read your question if you prefer?
It's just a small thing, but back in 5B, talking 10 days prior to the meeting date, any individual interested in declaring his or her candidacy for an elected position. Couldn't that be their position, just so we don't, specify gender?
Absolutely. I don't have a problem with that, and I agree with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So if you'd like to put that as a motion to the committee, you could move, and we could possibly settle that now by unanimous consent.
move to change his or her in 5B of the proposed rules to say, instead of his or her candidacy, have it say their candidacy.
Second.
And the motion is seconded. Does anyone have any questions about that motion, or can we proceed to vote on it?
It's grammatically incorrect. An individual cannot be a there unless it's a trans person.
I realize that, but personally, I'm willing to live with it. We haven't, I think the language keeps evolving and we need to,
If I may,
English is something that keeps evolving. So I'm sorry,
Okay.
go ahead.
I don't have the hand raising feature, so I want you to interject. They is an acceptable use of a singular pronoun, so it is grammatically correct.
So
Agreed.
for the sake of staying on track with this discussion, I think maybe we could revise the motion if Sharon's willing to empower the Rules Committee to implement the best practices for gender neutral language in the rules and adopt those as the rules. I think that would be a non-controversial way to handle this. Is there any objection to revising the motion in that regard?
I have no objection.
Do you mean gender inclusive, Tony?
Oh, and you
Sure.
could make it grammatically correct by saying individuals interested in declaring their candidacy. Just make individuals plural.
Individuals interested
In declaring their candidacy. In other words,
So you take out any?
it doesn't matter. You can leave it in or take it out, but it's just a question of having it agree with its antecedent.
Is that does that sound acceptable to you, Sharon?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see, just to make sure that we have this correct, could you, let's see, who was it that proposed that last revision?
Any individuals interested in declaring their candidacy.
Okay, so if there is no objection to revising that rule to read any individual declaring,
Plural.
any individuals,
Individuals.
I shouldn't try to do this. Just say it one more time so we're entirely clear.
Any individuals with an S interested in declaring their candidacy for an elected position.
Okay, thank you. And I see that Heather has her hand raised. Heather, do you have a comment on this particular issue, or is it another topic about the rules?
Another topic, so you can hold off.
Okay, so let's just finish if we can. So let's try to pass this motion by unanimous consent if there is no objection. So if there is no objection to changing the wording of this section as just read in the rules, if there is any objection, please raise your hand now or unmute yourself. Okay, so I don't see anybody raising their hands. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see the whole view, except for the people that were already asking questions. Wait, so Sharon, you're raising your hand, but that's in support of the motion. So what I'm asking is raise your hand if you have an objection to the motion.
Sorry.
Mark, are you meaning to raise your hand? Mark Jaffe? No, okay. Okay, so there are no objections. So the motion passes and the rules are revised, and as the rules proposal is revised as specified, and I request that James make those revisions when he has time. And now we can continue to debate anything else that people want to discuss about the rules proposal. So let's see, who was it that just had their hand raised a moment ago? Heather.
Yes, I was just wondering whether we could propose a way to separate out for the voting the rule of having somebody declare that they wanted to run in advance of the meeting rather than do it just at the meeting, so that people can have the opportunity to vote in the manner of which they want or agree to.
Yes, we can certainly do that. That would be a motion to divide the question. So
I would like to
if-
propose a motion to divide the question. Thank you very much.
excellent. And just so we clarify which question, which part of the question, I'm looking to make sure we get the right. So this is in number 5,
Yes.
notice of meeting. It would be the 5 section C. So the subsection C of the 5th rules proposal. Consider that one separately.
Yeah, you took it off of the screen, so I was looking on your
Oh,
screen.
sorry, I'll put it back up. I will put it back up. Okay, so now everyone can see. And I just wanted to double check, James, do you see any issue with considering number
think she means-
5C separately?
I think it was a reference to 5B. Were you Heather? Were you saying that you wanted nominations to be permitted on the floor?
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
5B.
5B, you're right. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for putting it up so I could see.
Okay, so the motion is to consider 5B as a separate question from the rest of the rules. So to have one vote for the rest of the rules proposal and one vote for section 5B by itself. Is there a second for the motion? Okay.
Second.
I second.
Yes, we have a second. We have 2 seconds. So are there any further questions about that motion before we vote on it? Okay, no further questions about the motion to divide the question. So we can pass this motion by unanimous consent if no one objects. So does anyone object to considering 5B separate from the rest of the rules proposals? If you object, please raise your hand now. And Shahid, I see you have your hand raised, but is that for a question you want to ask about another rule? Okay, so you're not objecting to this. Okay, I believe there are no objections, so we have divided the question. So Diana, if you can please revise the ballot for the rules vote. So there will be 2 choices, one to adopt the proposed rules except for 5B and one to adopt the proposed rule 5B. And now we can continue with other questions or points about the rules.
Sorry,
Yes.
I just want to confirm. So if you vote no on 5B, then it would go just back to you could put your candidacy out on the floor, right?
Yes, if you
I just
vote
want to
no,
make sure we understand the yes, no of what happens with that.
yes, and we'll try to make that clear on the ballot. But yes, if you vote yes, so you'll have the option to vote yes for all the rules, adopting all the rules except for 5B, or vote no for that. And then you'll have another ballot item that will let you vote yes to adopt Rule 5B, requiring notice, or no to not adopt that rule.
Great.
So
Thank you.
the rules be considered in 2 questions. If you vote yes to both, you want to adopt everything on the page. If you vote yes to the whole package, but no to 5B, then you want to adopt everything except 5B. Okay. And I know Shahid was waiting, so I'll recognize Shahid Khan to make his point about the rules.
Yes, I just want to discuss about the 8C, the committee members which are at least 4 members. So I just need a clarification that
Okay. Shahid, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
4 members mean include because if we decide anything.
I'm sorry, Shahid. If you could try turning off your camera, sometimes that makes your sound better because we can't hear you right now. Could you try turning? Okay, can you try speaking again?
About the members of the committee. There is 4 members. So 4 members means include chair of the committee or the straight away 4 members. Because if we decide anything, so 2 plus 2 means that there is no decision. So what do you think? We need 4 members or 5 members?
Thank you, Shahid. I think I understand that. So in case anyone had trouble hearing Shahid, he's asking about rule number 8D, which specifies that a committee must have at least 4 members. And he's asking whether that includes the chair, which my understanding is that it does. And I think he's also suggesting that it may be better to set the minimum at 5 members because then you could have a clear majority in any vote. James, do you have anything to say about that?
I see the point. It is a good one. I think when we were discussing how the number of members that each committee should have, we were looking at the number of members that most of our committees had, and so 4 just seemed more realistic than 5. But I don't have a strong feeling. We thought 4 was the right number, but if the committee feels 5 is better, I don't think there's any magic to our number.
Thanks, James. Does anyone else have a position on or a thought on whether it should be 5 or 4? I guess I would add that one hope that we have in the committee process is that these committees will mostly operate by consensus, because I feel like nobody joins a committee so they can be in a faction of 2 voting against another faction of 2, and the chair is always going to have to be settling those divisions. If with a committee that small, we would hope they would be all, working in the same direction and trying to recruit more members. I feel like once you get, to a larger size committee, then having a proper democratic vote makes more sense when you're dealing with a group of 4. Basically, the main project is just to get more people to sign up, I would think. But does anyone else have anything to add on this topic? Let's see. I see that Joanne Boger has her hand raised. Did you have something about this or something about another part of the rules?
Actually, I did have something about this, but I also, by chance, had something about the previous subject. So maybe I can quickly just talk to this comment.
Sure.
That matter. Since the number 4 is just meant to be a minimum number, we will often find that committees might be 5 people, 6 people, 13 people, 14 people. In other words, any random number of folks might sign up for a committee. So we could have even numbers often in a committee or odd numbers often in a committee. And I think maybe that's why I think it probably does not matter if we change the minimum to 5. So that's my comment on the recent proposal. The previous proposal, however, I was just wondering if we want to, if we decided that we're going to split the question, divide the question, I think you called it. But it seems to me that if it might be good practice for those folks who are ready to be nominated for an office and they've made up their mind in advance that yes, that those people should report their nomination 10 days before the meeting, so that there will at least be a public list that that's available to, to all of us in advance for the folks that we're sure that have, that have definitely gotten an interest in being officers. Then we could add the provision that also folks can bring in new nominations at the meeting itself or very close to the meeting itself. I think that might be a good way to handle the question.
Thanks, Joanne. So we have Andrew Dona Couch has his hand raised. Andrew, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly comment on the number of 4. It seems like 4 that seems like a good number to me, because I could see, if we're codifying in the rules, what's the minimum for a committee to be allowed? We wouldn't want to go too high and risk a committee not being able to operate. And I agree with the previous sentiments that were shared about hopefully committees operating on the basis of consent and so I think that the main thing to think about with the rules is that we want to set sort of a minimum standard and not try to optimize for the perfect process.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I see that, let's see, Lori Nipel has her hand raised. Did you have something on this topic as well, Lori?
No, I didn't have my hand raised. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake. So I guess my question now is, does anybody want to make a motion regarding the committee, the proposal that a committee must have at least 4 members? Or, I guess I want to remind everybody that this is an ongoing process. Anybody in this group is welcome to join the Rules Committee and work on the next round of rules proposals. And we're going to see how these go. And I'm sure that we're going to have to make some tweaks down the road. This is nothing here is set in stone forever. This is just, our first attempt at crafting some rules for our committee to work well. Does anyone have any other proposals regarding the section on new committees that we're discussing right now? Okay, and I'm looking in the chat just to see if there's anybody that we skipped over. I think we have included, so we reached Joanne. Okay, so does anybody have any points to raise or questions about any of the other rules proposals? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anything in the chat. So I think now we can proceed to vote. Yes, and I second what Julie just said in the chat. Thanks very much to the Rules Committee for their hard work on this. I know it was a lot to put these together. And I hope some more folks will join the Rules Committee following this meeting to help continue that work. But right now, let's see, Diana, are we ready to release the ballots for the 2 questions we're considering? Adopting the rules.
The election just went live.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So if everyone can go to that same link, should get you there from your email. Or if you still have the screen open, the vote should have just popped up. It just popped it up on mine, an orange button that says vote on rules. And then you will see 2 questions. The first one says, shall we adopt the proposed rules 1 to 4, 5A, 5C, 5D, and 6 through 12? And the second one is, shall we adopt proposed rule 5B? So if you want to adopt the whole package, you would vote yes on both of those questions. If you want to adopt none of it, you would vote no on both of those questions. And in that case, we would stick with the just the basic rules set out in the county committee rules. And if you wanted to adopt most of the proposal, but not that one section requiring candidates to give notice, then you would vote yes for number 1 and no for number 2. Sharon, did you have a question?
Hi, yeah. What did we decide, or did we just accept on 5C what the final thing that we're not incorporating what Joanne had suggested?
Oh, we are. So we made that decision by unanimous consent. So since no
Okay,
one
good.
objected, James will revise the rules. We haven't been able to do it in real time, but James, I know, has noted it down, and we will be changing that language
Okay. All right,
as
thank you.
specified. And this meeting is being recorded, so we can go back and make sure we get the language right.
Okay.
So when we adopt these, if we vote to adopt these rules, that language will be included in the final proposal.
Great, thank you.
And Daniel Millstone, did you have a question? I see your hand's raised, but you're muted.
I seem to be having trouble finding the voting screen because you have the document up.
Oh, okay. I will stop sharing and see if
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
The voting screen would be in your browser window.
Right.
No,
So I'm right with you. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So try it again and let us know if you have any more problems. And just reminding everybody, if you're having problems voting, you can always text Courtney. She just posted her number in the chat, or you can. Oh yes, and yeah, Sharon was asking me to stop sharing the screen. I will remember that for next time. No sharing screens while voting. And Diana just posted the link to vote if you're having trouble finding that in your email. And just one more reminder that after you vote, you have to click the button that says verify your selection. Then you have to click the orange button again to submit your ballot. Okay, so I think we're just going to give another minute for people to finish voting. And then if you need more time or if you're having problems, you can let us know. And I want to thank everybody for participating in this meeting. It's been great talking to you all. And we are not quite on the schedule I was hoping we'd be on, but we're not too far behind. So we'll try to move things along for the rest of the meeting. Okay, Bill is asking in the chat, what is the code? The code is the one you got in your email. It's a 4-number code. So everybody has their own unique code. So Bill, if you go look in the last email you got from Election Buddy, you should see that 4-digit code. And if you don't see it, text Courtney. She should be able to look it up for you. Okay, so I'm hearing from Diana that some people are still working on voting, so we'll give you another couple of minutes. Oh, there's one announcement I can make while folks are still voting. I just wanted to give everybody an update on our appointments, because I know there was a lot of confusion around this. First, people were appointed to county committee to empty seats, and then the appointments didn't happen, and then they happened again. So this is what happened in December. Our district leaders submitted a list of 92 nominees to fill all the vacant county committee seats in our district. And these were primarily people who weren't able to complete their petitions due to the pandemic. All 92 of these people were seated at the December 23rd county committee meeting. So we currently have an almost full county committee of 263 members. And everybody who is participating in the meeting tonight, whether you are appointed or whether you petitioned onto county committee, everybody is a full and equal member of the county committee as of now. There is, of course, a legal challenge, as Doug Schneider mentioned, to that last meeting that happened in December. So if that meeting gets thrown out, then the people who were appointed would be unappointed. But we won't know that for a few more weeks, possibly months. And if that does happen, of course, we would try to find a way to appoint you all back to county committee as soon as possible. So that is the update on appointments. Okay, and I'm seeing that Robert is having a problem. Okay, so I'm going to instruct Robert, who's having trouble with his voting, to reach out to Courtney. Because I'm not sure. Let me see. One thing you could do, Robert, is try to change, if you know how to change your name on Zoom, put your full name in so we can look you up on the list and find out what the problem is. Oh, and Andrew has a question. So he's asking that, our ADC, if our ADC is almost full. And yes, we had enough appointments to fill all the seats, but then what happened is we found out some people had moved out of Brooklyn. Unfortunately, a lot of members in our district have moved out of Brooklyn since the election, since the primary last June. So we do have, I believe it is 9 vacant seats right now, but it's not clear whether we can fill those seats because everything is in flux with the lawsuit around the last meeting. So I think once the dust settles from that last county committee meeting and we know the result of the lawsuit, then we'll have a better answer for you about whether we're allowed to fill those last 9 seats or whether they need to stay vacant until the 2022 election. Okay, and Diana is saying that she thinks that everybody who was still in the Zoom has voted. So I believe we can close the vote. If you're still having trouble voting, you could raise your hand or let us know now.
Participants. Do this more. Oh.
Okay, Robert, yes. Are you're still having trouble with your code?
Yes, wait, how do you do that?
Okay, you know what? I'm going to look it up and I will message it to you and see if that works.
Hey, Robert, this is Francis, the secretary. Can you just tell me what your full name is so I can make sure that you're on the list?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, it's Robert Finley, Finley. It
And
accepted my access code on the first vote, but on the second vote, it's not accepting it. Finley.
Yep, I got you. So I'll private message you the code. You entered it for both?
Yeah, it worked the first time on the first vote, but not on this one.
Okay, we're checking on this. Bear with us.
Diana's looking into it.
Robert, your code should work now.
Oh,
Let me know
okay.
if it doesn't.
Okay, let me. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the.
All right, so after Robert votes, I'm going to close the vote and then share the results.
Thank you, Diana.
All right. The vote is now closed. And here we are with the results. We adopted all those except 5B unanimously, and then roll 5B1 with 60/21 with 74% of the vote. And it's going to take me a couple minutes to get this one into a Google Sheet because there were multiple questions, but I will have it up momentarily.
Thanks very much, Diana, and thanks everybody for your patience while we figure out this electronic voting. And we have, I believe, before we move on to the next point in the agenda, there's one more motion that James wanted to make related to the rules. So I'm going to turn it back over to James.
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that although the county committee rules allow each ADC to make our own rules to govern our ADC, we still, after we enact our rules, my understanding is that we have to have them certified by county. And so we'll present our proposed rules to county and presumably they will certify them. But my understanding is when the 50th ADC did this, they wrote their own rules. County required some minor wording changes. So to anticipate that and not to not require a full vote of the ADC, I would move that we permit the Rules Committee to revise the rules for the 44th ADC to ensure compliance with county committee rules and/or state law, provided that no such revisions shall alter the substantive intent of said rules, and any revisions made pursuant to this motion shall be approved by unanimous vote of the 44th ADC officers, after which the revisions shall be operative.
Is there a second for this motion?
Second.
Thank you. And so just in case anyone's a little confused, because it's a little complicated, I talked to some people in the 50th ADC who did this about a year ago. They passed changes to their rules. And for the most part, they were certified with no problem, but county said that they had to change a few words to get it fully in compliance with election law. So this motion would just empower the Rules Committee to make those adjustments so we can still have these new rules in place for the next meeting. Because if we don't if we don't pass this motion and county wants us to change something, then we would have to call the whole ADC together again and take another, full vote to make the change. So this way, the Rules Committee would be able to make those minor changes with just a unanimous vote of the ADC officers. Does anyone have any questions about this motion? Okay, it looks like Robert, your hand is raised, but that might be from before. Did you have a question about this motion?
No.
No. Okay.
I had some difficulty getting rid of the raised hand.
No problem. Courtney, do you have a question?
I just wanted to say, how are we defining minor here again? Minor change?
Right. So let me see if I can put the text of the motion on screen. I'm going to try to do that right now.
What my motion indicated was that the revision shall not alter the substantive intent of the rule. And then to, as sort of an extra protection, those revisions would need to be unanimously approved by the officers.
Okay. And sorry, I'm slow with the presentations, but I'm going to get the text of the motion up on screen so everybody can see it. And then we can proceed to vote on this motion. So let me just share screen. Okay, can everybody see the text of the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are there any other questions regarding this motion? Looks like there are not. So we can try to pass this by, oh wait, there's somebody posted in the chat. Okay, yes, thanks Andrew. We do try to coordinate with the other ADCs because we're all figuring, this is all new to all of us. ADCs haven't been around in Brooklyn much recently, but they're coming back. So the motion that we permit the Rules Committee to revise the rules for the 44th ADC to ensure compliance with KCDCC rules and or state law, provided that no such revisions shall alter the substantive intent of said rules, and any revisions made pursuant to this motion shall be approved by unanimous vote of the 44th ADC officers, after which the revisions shall be operative. We can try to pass this by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to this motion? And it looks like there is no objection. So the motion has passed. So thank you very much, everybody. And thanks, James and the Rules Committee, for all your work on this. And now we're going to proceed to election of officers. So in our, and I'll stop sharing my screen. In our mailed and emailed meeting notice, we requested that all candidates for the officer roles give notice by January 20th, so we could notify members about all the candidates. The 4 current officers are the only ones who announced their intention to run for these offices. However, the current rules we're operating under don't include any deadline. So if anyone else wishes to run for one of these offices, they can announce when the office is called, and we will put them on a ballot. So the first office we will consider is the chair. This is the office that I hold since we formed this ADC about a year ago. And I'm not going to make a long speech because I'm already taking enough space in this meeting. I'm just going to say I hope I have the honor to serve this committee through 2022, and then I would hope to hand this role off to someone else. So start thinking about that for 2022. I hope that there is our future next ADC chair maybe in the room with us tonight. My goals for the next year are just to get you to know all of you better, to keep pushing for a more democratic and better run county party, to support the work of all our subcommittees, and to increase voter participation and engagement in our district. Those are my priorities. So we will now vote on the chair position. Is there anyone else who wishes to be on the ballot for chair of the ADC? Okay, and I'm not seeing any hand raised. So since this election is uncontested, we could conduct it by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to my reelection as chair of the 44th Assembly District Committee? Okay, and I'm not seeing any objection. So since there is no objection, Tony Malone is elected chair. And now we will continue with the next office, which is vice chair. And again, with this position, the only one who's notified us they're running is Courtney Adrian, the current vice chair. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to speak a little bit about her role.
Hi, guys. I also won't take up a lot of your time. I think we would describe the entire leadership of the committee as a coalition of the willing. So I also hope that people out there are thinking about not challenging us in the future. We won't be challenged. We'll just lie down and let you have it. It's really fine. But so if you're thinking about a leadership post, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you about it. But I will be happy to do it for the next year. After our first year, I think I have a much better idea about ADCs and what they can and should be doing. So I'm looking forward to starting to do those things, probably in conjunction with some of our committees that are being newly formed and some that are already formed. But mostly I think that the most exciting opportunity for ADCs is to model for county exactly how these meetings should go and exactly how they can be, how democratic they can be, which I think we're doing a great job at tonight, which is amazing. I'm totally blown away about how few problems there have been with the digital voting and the Zoom, and it's great. But then also it should be a place for county community members to get together and figure out a way to best represent their constituents. So to that end, I think over the course of the next year, I'd really like to help county committee members canvass their EDs for a number of things coming up, including there's a voter registration deadline February 14th to become a Democrat in time to vote for mayor. The voter turnout is always extremely low in those races, even though it's extremely important. So I'd like to help county committee members do that. And then, registration deadlines and GOTV for everything leading up to our city races at the end of June. So that's my vision. Vote for me. Thanks for coming, guys. I think we'll turn it over now to, I think it's Diana or.
Oh, but before we go on, sorry, we should do, so first we have to ask if there's anyone else who wishes to be on the ballot for vice chair.
Sorry.
No problem. So if you wish to be on the ballot for vice chair, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, and I don't see any hands raised. So since this is an uncontested election, we can conduct it by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the election of Courtney Adrian as vice chair of the 44th Assembly District Committee? Okay, and I don't see any raised hands. I don't see any objections. So Courtney Adrian is elected vice chair. Thanks, Courtney. And now we will continue. I have a quick note about the next position, the secretary role. At our last official meeting, we created two secretary roles, a recording secretary and a corresponding secretary. But since that, then one of those two secretaries, Matt Stern, moved out of Brooklyn. So the officer's thinking is to streamline the operation of this ADC. We may as well revert back to the single position. And the only person who has stepped up to run for that position is the current secretary, Francis Sakata. So I'm going to turn it over to Francis now to speak a little bit about his role as secretary.
Thanks, Tony. And thanks to the EXCO team that's here right now. You know, you guys are really wonderful, and I see you doing a lot of the heavy lifting every day, every week, and it's a real honor to work with you. Thank you to the membership at large. Your incredible patience and kindness as we, you know, go into this foray of, you know, having digital meetings and digital voting. You know, it's really, you know, it gives us a lot of confidence. It gives me a lot of confidence to see that we're trying to do the right thing and to model how, you know, the Kings County Democratic Party should behave. So I'm Francis, longtime Brooklyn resident. I joined as a secretary of the ADC because I really wanted to sort of take an active role in helping, you know, this little group sort of grow and evolve, and to model how I would hope that our, you know, county Democratic Party would behave. And one of the things I've been really committed to is helping to sort of build out infrastructure for our ADC by ensuring that we can find the right, you know, technologies and the right pieces of software so we can do things like have online voting and make sure that people can participate in material of their, you know, technological education and things like that. One of the things I've been really committed to is sort of building out an online platform for us, like to make a simple website to start and then sort of scale it up, and also to figure out the best means of sort of distributing and providing, you know, sort of the rapid deployment of all of our documentation and information that we have, so that way we can make this ADC the most accessible and the most inclusive and transparent body that we have here. And my hope is that you will elect me to continue to serve as secretary, so that way I could be a point of access to everyone who needs to ask questions and, you know, they want to have access to us, and to sort of serve as a conduit, so that way we can have better communication and participation between us and our elected officials. You guys read my statement, you know what I'm about. I hope that you're happy with my work and that you would allow me to continue to serve for the next year at least.
Thanks, Francis. Is there anyone else who wishes to be on the ballot for secretary? Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand, so we can proceed by unanimous consent since this election is uncontested. Is there any objection to the election of Francis Sakata as secretary? And I don't see any objections. So since there is no objection, Francis Sakata is elected secretary of the 44th Assembly District Committee. Thanks, Francis. And now we're going to hear from our current treasurer, Diana Gonzalez, who is running to be reelected as treasurer.
Hey, everyone. I'll keep this short and say that I think the thing I was most excited about for being treasurer was that we could put together some great fundraising events and get to know each other. And then COVID happened. So I want to actually maybe do that at some point, especially now that we have this limit of 4 proxies. We actually need to get to know each other. So that's what I'm very excited about. I just also want to add as an aside that after seeing county's massive bumbling of the vote counting, I got really nervous at having the task of managing election buddy. And I'm relieved that it seems to be working out. And I want to thank all of you for your patience in this process, because it is actually a little hard. So anyway, if you want to run for my seat, by all means, but if not, I'm more than happy to continue, because Francis and Courtney and Tony are a wonderful group of people to work with, and I look forward to another year of it.
Thank you, Diana. Is there anyone else who wishes to be on the ballot for treasurer? I don't see any hands raised. So since this election is uncontested, we can conduct it by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the election of Diana Gonzalez as secretary of the 44th ADC? And I don't see any objection. So since there is no objection, Diana Gonzalez is elected secretary.
Treasurer.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah, I got confused. You gave her
Oh,
my
no.
job, Tony?
I said the wrong word. We have two secretaries. Okay.
It's
I
getting
retract.
late.
I
It's getting
retract my.
late.
It is getting late. That was a copy paste error in my outline for this meeting. I retract my previous statement, and since there is no objection, Diana Gonzalez is elected treasurer of the 44th Assembly District Committee. My apologies. Yes, it is getting late. So we'll try to move rapidly, and I'm going to try to talk less. The next thing on our agenda is reports from committees. And this is very exciting because we have some committees doing amazing work. And I know it's going to get even more exciting this coming year. So some of these committees actually in the rules proposal we just passed are now standing committees because the rules committee felt that they were so important. We need to always have them in our county committee. And one of those is the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So I want to recognize Lori Davidson, who's currently chairing that committee. And I think that they're thinking about having sort of an open process at their first meeting to just decide, who's going to be chair or how they're going to lead going forward. But I'll let Lori speak about that. So Lori, if you're ready to speak about that committee, you can go ahead.
It's a lot of hard logistical stuff that no one wants to do, and so I appreciate it. Okay, so our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, one thing I was thinking we should call it Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. And not only I think it's an important committee, but I think it's also the lens through which we should do all the work of all the committees. So we met back in February before everything went crazy. And I want to thank Janet, Kim, and Marion from our group who came and met at my house and worked on this. So when the result of our meeting, first we came up with some mission for the committee, which was to increase the diversity of county reps in the AD 44 to better reflect the demographics of our district. Create a county committee that is an inclusive organization where all feel welcome, make our work relevant and impactful to the communities we represent. So that was our mission. And then we wanted to divide up into short, mid, and long-term strategies to get there. Our first short-term goal was to identify the vacancies for reps in the AD 44 and do a targeted push to encourage community members from underrepresented populations to run. So we did do that, and we're pretty successful in getting about 5 or 6 more committee members that were people of color and underrepresented on our committee. So that was some good work in the short term. Still a lot more work we could do there. And then we wanted to supply every rep with a list of the people in their ED that they represent to help with outreach and dialogue with their ED. So I think that's something that we need to do some work to figure out the logistics on that. We wanted to set up some good communication channels. And then midterm, we wanted to help with orientation and session for new members so that we don't lose people who join and then don't feel that it's a place for them. So we want to make sure that we retain the people that we recruit by listening, hearing, and making this an inclusive organization. Having some community outreach data so that when we're doing outreach on like voter turnout or education, that we have good leadership and contacts from the full diversity of our community. And then some long-term, I think really important goals is having language access in the county committee. And recognizing that the city has made important strides to provide language access at the polls and in voter registration forms, and to make our AD 44 County Committee and the larger county committee an inclusive organization. We should provide communications in multiple languages, have interpretation at meetings, and language should not be a barrier to participation in civic life in our multilingual borough. So these are some of the things. That's what came out of our first meeting. So, if you are interested in working on these midterm and long-term goals that we set up, and if you have other ideas and want to take a leadership role here, I think it would be great to have like co-chairs that are working on this together. I would love to see diverse leadership in our committee. So we are practicing what we are working towards. So yeah, please get involved. And I'm not sure, Tony, how people are signing up, but
I just put a form in the chat.
okay.
So if you go in the chat, there's a form you can click, you can sign up there. If that doesn't work, you can always email the ADC email address and I'll connect you with Lori.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I've been extremely impressed how, you know, the folks in the diversity committee managed to, in the middle of a pandemic, you know, when the petitioning period was cut in half, you know, in about a week, they managed to recruit, I think it was a good 5 or 6 new, you know, people of color for our county committee. So it's really important and I'm excited to see that work continue. I encourage you to sign up for that committee. So moving on, the next committee on our agenda is the Outreach and Voter Turnout Committee. And this is sort of a combined group because last year when we first formed these committees, we had a communications committee or an outreach and communications committee proposed by Kim Burney Brook that was going to deal with communication between county committee members, and a voter turnout committee proposed by Alan Blitz that was going to focus on reaching out to voters. But we've discovered that getting, you know, members plugged into these committees, and everybody's very busy. It's hard to, you know, find enough people to staff up 2 of these, and they were fairly similar. So the consensus is we're going to combine them. So I would like to recognize Kim first, if she wants to say a few words about the original vision and what they did, and then I'm going to introduce John Johnston, who has stepped up, offering to lead the committee going forward. But first, let's hear from Kim.
Hi. So for the outreach committee, really the idea was to come up with a way of welcoming new county committee members and what to expect when you attend your first county committee meeting. So understanding the protocols, what the agendas, how the agenda was laid out, how the idea originally I did from one of the first county committee meetings that a few of us had attended, which things were very unclear and which seems a little normal now. But that there were some of the protocols that were actually occurring that were normal courses of business that folks were not aware of. So it was just trying to get people educated around the structure of those meetings. So that was really the original intent behind it. I know it would be great if someone could take that on, because I still think that communication internally is important, especially welcoming new county committee members, and also outreach, specifically if county committee members are interested in running again and they need help petitioning. So just kind of ways that we can work together. But that may happen as we do more fundraisers and get to know one another as well.
Thanks very much, Kim, and thanks for your work. And now I want to introduce John Johnston. John reached out to me when in an email I asked if anybody was willing to step up to lead this committee, because this is one of the committees that in our rules we now have to have. And I know Kim did her part and was ready to take a step back. So thank you, John, for stepping up. And I know we had a nice conversation earlier this week about ranked choice voting. So if you could touch on that a little bit and talk a little bit about what you would do with the Outreach and Voter Turnout Committee.
I think I'm a resident of Windsor Terrace, and I'm on the Community Board 7 as well. I'm looking forward to working with the Assembly Committee to try to get more folks in from all parts of the Assembly District to get registered to vote as Democrats, and also to get them out and encourage them to be part of civic society and to vote and get involved in making decisions in the community. And I would reach out to and groups in the district to try to do that. And technology or anything, once hopefully COVID leaves, we can do it in person by going door to door and saying hi to people. My hope.
Thanks, John. You were breaking up a little there, but I think we got most of that. But if you don't mind, could you just talk a little bit more about the ranked choice part?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
thanks.
so I've been trying to educate myself and other groups that I'm involved in with ranked choice voting. I found that a lot of people are very confused. So maybe one of the goals I would have is to try to have for the 44th Assembly District a ranked choice voting seminar with the folks from Common Cause. I mean, they've been everywhere, but I think that's important. But ranked choice voting is coming, and a lot of people really do not understand it. So I think that might be my goal for until the June primary, to educate people on that.
Thank you very much. And I definitely second that. This is going to be our first primary in New York City with ranked choice voting for every city office. And we don't want voters in our district to be baffled by it. So I encourage everybody, if you can, spare some time for this, sign up for the Outreach and Voter Turnout Committee. It's on that same form that I posted in the chat. And if you're not able to participate in that committee, we'll announce to the whole membership, when we're going to put together an action, because we're going to do it. We're going to need to do something soon regarding ranked choice voting. So thanks so much, John. And on this subject, let's see, is Ariel here? I'm looking. We have one of our members, Ariel Merkel, is. Oh, she's here. Great. She has something to say about ranked choice voting and people with disabilities, because she works on that with the Board of Elections. So take it away, Ariel.
Thank you, Tony. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ariel Merkel, and I'm the Americans with Disabilities Act Coordinator at the Board of Elections in the City of New York. I know most people think of the BOE and it's just patronage. There are a few of us who are technical hires who applied for positions. And I'm there to help the board support voters with disabilities and poll workers with disabilities. So I've been doing a lot of work on training voters with disabilities on how ranked choice voting works on the ballot marking device and when they mark their absentee ballots. And I do want to encourage those of you who haven't insured. So per the city charter, the campaign finance board is actually charged with doing voter outreach, not the Board of Elections, but we've been kind of working hand in glove with the CFB, and they have some wonderful trainers ongoing. Wednesday afternoon, it's like a noon to 1:30 lunch thing. And then I want to say Thursday evening, I'll look up the link and drop it in the box. But those are excellent resources to learn how kind of the intricacies of ranked choice voting and how best to explain it to your communities. And I do want to just say that even though, I work for the Board of Elections and we're not doing voter outreach for ranked choice voting, just to offer myself as a resource. So if you have any specific questions about the process or specifically regarding how to support voters with disabilities, I will put my email in the chat so you can reach out with me regarding any other questions. But thank you for the time.
Thanks so much, Ariel. And if I'll also share that if you email me the information, I'll put it in our next email to all the members as well. So people that had to leave or couldn't make it to the meeting can also see it. But I think that this would be a great opportunity for us to take some of this knowledge, some of what we're learning about ranked choice, and our enthusiasm and channel it all through the voter turnout and outreach committee. So I really encourage you to sign up for that committee. Even if you're not sure you can do it in the long term, you could at least be part of this push right now before the primary, because this is the time when we need to reach voters.
If I could just say one thing too, the polls closed at 8 today. It's the third day of early voting for the first election that's going on with ranked choice voting right now. It's in the 24th City Council District in Queens. And we haven't had, a lot of turnout, but the feedback about ranked choice voting has been positive. So I think that we need to give voters, the benefit that once they're educated on it, that it's something that's working well. I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thanks, Ariel. So I hope that folks will sign up for that committee. Continuing on, we heard from Debbie Herdan at the very beginning of the meeting because she had to leave, but she's leading the Transportation Safety Committee. So if you're concerned about street safety and you have ideas about how we as party officials can do something about that, please use that same form in the chat to sign up for the Transportation Safety Committee. And now we'll continue on to the Fundraising Committee. And if we can hear briefly from Diana about what is coming up for the Fundraising Committee this year. So Diana Gonzalez.
Hello, everyone, again. So yeah, the fundraising committee is going to have meetings and talk about fundraising and do fundraising. So that's really all I have to say about that.
I have one question. If people want to give money to the Assembly District Committee, because it does cost money to have these meetings. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but we do need, for this meeting, we had to send out 270 stamped envelopes.
Yep. So here's what I'm going to say. We're in the process of setting up a way to contribute online. I'd like to have that within the next week or two, and then we'll notify all of you. And that's the simplest way at this point.
Thanks, Diana. And of course, there's no obligation, but yes, we are. Yes, we're an independent organization. We don't get any funding from the county party, so we're trying to do this on our own, and we appreciate any support. I see that Andrew Donna Couch has a question.
Hi, yeah, just quickly on that note, do we have a financial report yet? I imagine we've had limited expenses so far, but you've already identified a couple. Are we planning on having financial reports in future meetings? Maybe Danny, give a couple seconds on that.
Yes. So at this point, basically what's been happening is we've been kind of paying out of pocket for our expenses ourselves. Once I get everything rolling and we can take credit card contributions, we'll get reimbursed for our expenses. And at that point, I'll have something to report to you. I have been filing all of the legally required reports, but they've all been no activity statements. So there's not a lot to tell you at this point, not a whole lot to see.
Thanks, Diana. Any other questions about the fundraising committee? Okay, so I think we can move on to the final committee on our agenda, which is the all-important Rules Committee. And we've seen the results of the Rules Committee's work in this meeting, because now we have limited proxies for our next meeting and many other rules changes. So I'm just going to turn it over to James Billsborough to talk about what he'd like to see in the coming year from the Rules Committee.
Thanks, Tony. Hello again, everyone. I think in the coming year, the primary goal that we're going to have is to see how the rules that we've just enacted work. As was alluded to earlier, we anticipate that we'll need to make adjustments. Some things will work better than others. And so we're going to try to be attentive to keep fine tuning. And of course, as things happen, there's probably rules that we need that we haven't anticipated. And so we will adjust and try to make things operate as smoothly as possible in the future. As I think we've said a few times, if you're interested in joining the committee, we've had anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9, maybe even 10 at one of our meetings. So just send me an email, send Tony an email, and we'll loop you in.
Thanks, James. Yes, if you've ever, pretended that you were, a member of the legislature writing bills or something like that, then the Rules Committee is the place for you, because it's fun to think about, like what are these words going to mean, a year from now, 2 years from now, with this size group, with a different size group. So yeah, I definitely encourage folks to check that out. Because I enjoyed those meetings when we worked on these rules. So continuing on, the last thing before we move off our current committees, I just wanted to speak for a second about the chairs of the committee. So nobody reached out saying that they wanted to chair these committees, but we definitely don't want these to be static roles. So when I was talking with Lori earlier today about the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, one thing we were discussing is that, when the committee meets, I think the best way to decide about leadership would be for the committee, to have an open discussion about how to share the load, I think. And, Lori was thinking about having co-chairs. I think that might work for some, although it might present some challenges. Or another idea would be, having someone, promise the chair of the committee for, 6 months or a year or, until a particular project is finished, with the understanding that another person would step up after that. So I think that's something that each committee can discuss in their meetings. But I don't want anyone to feel like that anybody owns this committee, forever. And I don't think any of the chairs feel that way. So I'd recommend that committees discuss that in their first meeting when they do get together, what sort of process they'd like for leadership going on. I don't think we need to, vote on that from the top down, but I think we can let the committees handle that. So continuing on, I was going to do a presentation about the county committee organizing meeting last month, but I think I'm going to postpone that to the end of this meeting, and we can see who wants to stick around and hash that out, because we could always talk about this another time. Obviously there were a lot of problems with the county committee meeting in December. It took 25 hours over 2 days, and it's not even clear that the votes from the last meeting were ever properly counted. We haven't seen the totals, but I am not going to go into the details right now because I know we all want to get to sleep and we have some other important business on the agenda. So
suffice to say, it was horseshit.
I guess it's past the kids' bedtime now, Francis.
Sorry.
So we can say that. So we will skip ahead to section 8, new business. But if anyone wants to discuss the county committee meeting, I'm happy to stay on after we get through the rest of the agenda, and we can have that conversation because there is a lot to talk about. So we are now in the new business section of the meeting, and we do have 2 proposals from members for new committees. The first one I received was from Andrew Dona Couch. He proposed a committee on the study of the democratic process. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to talk about that proposal.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Andrew Dona Couch. One thing that I've noticed in talking to county committee members is that people are maybe unfamiliar with how county committee works. A lot of folks either don't know how the county committee is supposed to work according to rules, or there's a mismatch between how it's supposed to work in the abstract and how it works in reality. And then even district leaders, I've heard from some of the newest district leaders that they are unfamiliar with what the role of district leader means. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to work to teach each other how county committee works, how our assembly district committee works, and how we can make decisions together collectively. And so in that vein, I'd like to propose a committee that would study the democratic process, both in the abstract, both how do we make decisions collectively, how do procedures work, how do Robert's Rules of Order very specifically, how do the rules of county committee and the rules of the assembly district committee work very specifically, but also mechanisms for reaching consensus and group decision making, and in the interest of promoting the sort of nuts and bolts of democracy. And so to that end, I'd like to propose this committee that I've spent a while trying to come up with a name that doesn't sound sort of like something out of 1984, the Education Committee or something like that. So the Committee on the Study of the Democratic Process, with the idea being that the committee could meet and decide what would be the most effective tools, what would be the most effective steps to take to encourage members of the Assembly District Committee, members of the County Committee, and even members of our community at large on how democratic decision-making processes work. So I'm happy to take any questions or discuss this, whoever has any feedback.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with, because it sounds like a great place to strategize for, when we're in these giant county committee meetings. And everything seems to be going wrong, an understanding of how things could work and how things should work in a parliamentary organization, I think would be really valuable. So we could take one or two very quick questions, but I encourage folks who are interested to sign up on the sheet I just put in the chat, and then you can certainly have a longer discussion about this with Andrew at the first meeting. Or you can, we'll put you in touch with him and you can correspond over email about anything you want to know. But does anyone have a quick question right now? Okay, thanks very much, Andrew. And now we have another committee proposal here in new business. And I'm sorry, I've been informed, I think I was mispronouncing your name. It should be Shahid Khan, is that correct? Okay, sorry about that, my apologies. So he is proposing a committee for new American political empowerment. And I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about that.
Thank you very much, Tony, and other members. So this is now almost more than 2 hours, so we are almost exhausted. So this committee, actually, we live in Brooklyn, and the part of Brooklyn is, the Colonial Avenue. So which is actually the transitional area for South Asian communities. So they come here and they live here, and after 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, they go other city, Long Island and New Jersey or Virginia, other areas. And because this is a very working class community, so they work on gas stations, grocery stores, a taxi driver, Uber driver. So they need very strong relationship with their political party. So there's a cultural barriers, language barriers, the social barriers, their settlement, their legal, illegal, documented, a lot of issues. So that's why I'm also a new immigrant. I came in this country in 2010. So I think this is a very important that if we strengthen our new Americans who come here, so we need to educate them, give them awareness, give them motivation about Democrat Party, about political process, to give them suitable information so they stay here in our district or our Brooklyn. So we need to integrate with them all these things. So this is my basic idea behind this new American Political Empowerment Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahid. And I know we're all at the mercy of our internet connection. So if we might have not heard every word that you said, maybe you can, if you can type up some of your proposal, I'll send it out to all the members as well when we talk about these. So if you missed anything, but I think it's an excellent idea, and I think this committee could also work hand in hand with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, both with the goal of reaching out to people that are not represented in our county committee and that are not connected into local politics the way that some of us are. We really have to think about those people and how to bring them in. So if you would like to sign up for the, well, I guess these are new committee proposals. So the first thing we should do is ask, is there any objection? I'll start with Andrew's committee first. Is there any objection to forming a committee on the study of the democratic process? Okay, and I see no objections, so we will form that committee. And is there any objection to the committee that Shahid proposed, the Committee for New American Political Empowerment? And I see no objections. So those two committees are formed. And I encourage folks to sign up on the form that's in the chat box if you're interested at all in either one of those. Attend the first meeting, or at least have a conversation with the other folks, and see what you can contribute. So thank you very much for bearing with us through this. That concludes our discussion about committees. And now I just wanted to see if we can get a quick update and some questions for our district leaders. And I appreciate them staying with us through this whole process. So let's start with District Leader Doug Schneider. If you want to give us a quick update on your work in the party and then take a few questions, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on everything earlier. So if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly take them now. I think everybody's, we've been here a long time, and I want to congratulate everybody on a really well-run meeting. And then, yeah, anybody has any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Doug. Does anybody have any questions for Doug Schneider? Okay, thanks very much. And as we know, we all know how to reach our district leaders here. So if you think of something afterwards, I'm happy to help you get in touch with Doug or Lori.
Oh wait, Tia has a question.
Tia has a question. Okay, Tia, go ahead.
Hi, Doug. I was wondering if there's been any communication with district leaders about the last meeting, the lawsuit, leadership, plans going forward, etc., that hasn't been shared with the rest of county committee?
I mean, I think that what, we're in constant communication about, all of the issues that you've talked about. I think the work that we've been doing on those issues, has been pretty public. We did the press conference with the lawsuit. We did a lot of outreach and a lot of talking about the prior county committee meetings. We talked about the Lori Maslow situation. We just had not so long ago, just what was it, 2 months ago, the vote on the county chair. So that's not going to come up again anytime soon. But I would say that at least for the kind of the group, that's myself, Josh Scholar, and all the newly elected reform district leaders, all of the information on all of the issues that are, that you mentioned have all been public. There's not really anything else, behind the scenes ready to spring on everybody right now.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Doug. Any other questions for Doug before we move on?
Ariel, that's not a question.
Yes, thank you, Ariel. She just shared her email in the chat, so we can reach out to her with our questions about ranked choice and how it affects people with disabilities, or other questions about the BOE. Okay, well, thanks, Doug. Thank you so much for sticking on. And
of course, good night, everyone.
Take care. And now I'd love to hear from Lori Citron-Nipel, our other district leader. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say to us before we open the floor for questions? Lori, are you still there? She may have stepped away for a moment.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Oh, we hear you now. Great.
Oh, sorry, I was talking. I guess you didn't hear me. Basically, I said that everything Doug said is basically true. I want to thank you all for running an excellent meeting and putting all your energies in. I know how much time and energy all of this takes. And I guess we have to wait on the results of the lawsuits, which we shall see what the outcome will be.
I do have one question that sort of parallels what Tia was asking Doug about. Is I wonder how much communication do you get from county leadership on a regular basis?
Not much.
That answers that. That's the sense that we've all been getting as well. It seems
there really isn't, other than when we have a meeting, and we have not had one since county committee. And even at those meetings, pretty much business is discussed, but nothing has been discussed as far as what transpired over those 20 some odd hours. And there is no calls, there's no back and forth, there's no emails, nothing like that.
Thanks. Okay, and it looks like Tia has another question, but before we get to that, does anybody else who hasn't had a chance to speak so far have a question for Lori? This is your chance to talk with your elected district leader. But I know it is late. Okay, Tia, go ahead.
Hi, Lori. I was just wanting to know, I'm remembering that you abstained on one of the votes at the last meeting. Was it the adoption of the previous rules, I guess? Was it that vote? I was just wondering what your reasoning was for that.
It was the adoption of Robert's Rules of Order,
Right.
which everybody wanted in the previous meeting, and nobody sent me the memo that they didn't want it in this meeting or what their hidden agenda was. There was no transparency, so naturally I was getting very mixed signals, and Robert's rules should be what's in line. So I don't know
Right.
how
So you weren't concerned that it was a way for a county to try to throw out Mariana's rules?
I would have no clue or had no clue that that was about to happen. So
Right.
it wasn't even an issue in my head. The only
Right,
issue
right.
in my head was how to run the meeting properly, and Robert's rules was what we were all advocating. And so it seemed perfectly normal to me that that was what should go forward. It was only when Doug voted against it that I sort of felt, okay, I'll abstain because maybe I'm missing something, but I didn't feel that I should vote against it because I felt that Robert's rules should be adopted.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tia, and thanks, Lori. I can add one other bit of information because it was a very confusing situation, but I was speaking with a parliamentarian during the meeting, because we had a group together trying to figure out what was going on. And our parliamentarian assured us that a vote of present actually is the same as voting against something in Robert's rules, which I learned that myself at the moment. And I believe, Lori, when we talked about that, you switched your vote to present. So
I did.
You wound up basically, my understanding, although they never revealed any of the votes from the last meeting, but both Doug and Lori have assured me that they voted with the members.
As
and
soon
not
as
with.
I got the text messages and I figured out what was going on, I did vote present, which was counted as a no vote.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say personally that I appreciate your support through these endless meetings, and that I think that, and we can talk more, as I said, about what happened in that last meeting, but it really was an amazing feeling in that first meeting on December 13th, when for the first time the members actually prevailed on a vote over the chair, which certainly hasn't happened in a very long time in Brooklyn. And our members here in 8044 and our district leaders were certainly a part of that. And the people, every single person that was recruited for county committee that carried a petition, made a difference because it was by a handful of votes. So it really, that was the moment that made this work worthwhile. And of course now we have to, and now we have to fight that battle again, but so it goes. But I digress. Does anyone have any other questions for Lori? Okay. Well, thanks so much, Lori, for taking the time with us tonight. And it's closing in on 10 o'clock, so we should be able to wrap this up very soon. I didn't officially close the new business section, so I should ask, does anyone else have any other new business that they wish to bring before this committee? Any motions or committee proposals? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. But, you know, if you do have an idea after this meeting, we are going to meet again. We're going to try to do this twice every year. And obviously we can work in committees in the meantime. So hold those thoughts. Andrew, you have something?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the appropriate procedural mechanism is. I feel like, given the recent events surrounding the district leader that was discovered to have shared some really disagreeable perspectives, I think it might be appropriate for our diversity and inclusion committee to work with the rules committee or propose some sort of statement on the behalf of our assembly district committee. I'm not sure if there's anything, exactly what the actionable thing to do is here for our assembly district committee, but it does seem like it'd be good for us to address that. Maybe not the specific question, but the more general issues that it raises about hate speech and about how we want to make sure that we're forming an inclusive community.
Thank you, Andrew. So I think that's a good. I agree with your instinct to defer to the first meeting of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee and the first meeting of the Rules Committee after this meeting. I would ask those two committees to consider what we could do as a body to respond to that, because it is sort of uncharted territory. I'm not sure if there's precedent for an ADC, taking an action like that against a district leader in another district, but the circumstances do certainly seem to call for it. So I support that. Shahid? Oh, sorry, I did it again. Shahid, my apologies.
I have two comments. That first thing is how we contribute our financial aspects or resources to the ADC. And second question is there any possibility to develop our own website, because the county committee, they have deleted the all names that was previous, and they have changed all the style of the website. So how we see that thing?
Yes, thank you, Shahid. And so earlier in the meeting, Diana did speak to that, and she said that she is going to be setting up a way soon for us to contribute online. So we will make that happen as soon as possible. And the same answer for the website. I know Francis is working on it. We've been talking about it. So hopefully, within not too many weeks, we will have a website where you can see the minutes for these meetings and other essential information. So thanks for bringing those points up. And is there any other new business that we should consider before we wrap up? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So let's have a show of hands, because I do have a presentation about what happened at the last county committee meeting. If anybody wants to stick on this meeting and talk about that, I'd be happy to do that with you. But if the vast majority of folks are ready to log off Zoom for the night, I am happy to do that as well. So let's have a show of hands. Raise your hand if you personally want to stick around and talk about county committee a little bit, and everybody else, don't feel any obligation. But if there's a decent number of people who do want to stay, I will happily stick around with you. Okay, I'm seeing a few hands. Okay, so I think what we are going to do, I propose that we adjourn this meeting. Oh yes, and Diana just reminded me of one more item on the agenda that maybe we can do it really quickly. So thanks for raising those hands. We will have that conversation in just a moment about county committee. One more thing that was on the agenda is if anybody has a very brief, less than a minute update on something that they're doing in the district that they're excited about, why don't you just go ahead and raise your hand now. And Jesse, do you have something you're doing in the district? Jesse Meyerson. Oh, no. Okay, Tia, go ahead. No, that was an old raised hand. Okay, I think everybody's tired. So let's do that another time. Or you can always email, things to the ADC account, and I'll try to spread the word. Tell your fellow committee members when you join one of our committees. Great. So thanks, those of you who raised your hand for the county committee discussion. Stay on. Everybody else, we will now adjourn the meeting. I just wanted to say thanks so much to my fellow officers, Francis, Courtney, Diana. Thanks to James and the Rules Committee. Thanks to Lori, to Kim, to John, all our other committee chairs. Thanks to Andrew and Shahid for proposing committees. Thanks to our district leaders, Doug and Lori. Thanks to our Assembly Member Carol. And thanks to all of you. Really, proud and happy to be in this committee with all of you. So watch your email. Make sure that the ADC emails aren't going to spam, because I will send the minutes of this meeting and updates about committees soon. And hope to see you all soon at some of these committee meetings and some of the other events we're going to have in the future. Thanks so much. And good night to those who are leaving. And those who want to stay and talk about county committee, let's do that.
Thanks so much, Tony. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.